Hello and welcome to the Build42 Ultimate Tier List Super Comp. You're about to see all 5 of a PZ Pro's tier list about everything important in Build42. Please be patient with some small audio issues as the channel and my skill has grown a lot over the last 6 months. I have added chapters for each specific tier list as well and some notes about how my thoughts have changed over time. Enjoy the Super Comp. And if you don't take Speed Demon, you're pretty much asking to lose your run surrounded by a giant horde of Zeds as you drive through the grass at 5 miles per hour. You really can't afford to not take this trait. The only downside is that it does make more noise when you reverse, but I don't see that as a big negative. Artisan, I don't see a big enough use for glass making at the moment or pottery to make this really worth even 2 points. I just don't see any value. I'm going to say it's probably awful. Maybe not never. I mean, there is some niche use, right? If you're doing a wilderness run or an Iron Man challenge, it could be useful. Or if you have your loot settings super low. Cat's eyes, yeah. This might be the most important trait in Build42. It's even more important than Speed Demon. The reason for this is that while the new lighting changes are absolutely beautiful, they do make the night extremely dark and rooms are extremely dark. And this trait will actually save your life sometimes. Because in the dark, your vision radius is remarkably limited. Combined with the possibility of being tired, you can be bit pretty much before you even see the Zed behind you. Dextrous is one of the best traits you can ever take on a character. We basically have 3 god traits in a row here. You need to carry so many different things in Build42, especially for crafting, and some very heavy things which take a lot of time to transfer. So being able to transfer items more quickly is a massive time gain. You'll also be able to pull out your gun faster, which is very nice, could save your life, and climb ropes if you do that. I don't know why people do. I've never done the rope climbing. I don't know if it's useful. Who knows? That's just not my thing. I don't do bases a lot. In single player, I could see some arguments for not using it, but in multiplayer, you must have this. Fast reader. If you have watched any of my other videos, hint, then you know I hate wasting my IRL time with tedious chores or boring actions. So I always play with fast reader, but I am going to finally not put it in excellent because of one change. They actually made reading glasses speed up your reading time and sitting on the ground now in build 42.15.2. So there is a little bit of a way to counteract the slow speed of reading. This is a very positive change that I'm really happy to see. In multiplayer though, without the ability to speed up time, it is basically critical you take fast reader unless your server has sped up reading by a lot. That is going to be very dependent on you. Either way, it's a very excellent trait to have. Gardener, never. It's awful. I do not value farming at all, and I never really have valued farming. I especially don't value farming levels. All they really do is let you see things about your crop and increase your yield. But why even farm, to be honest? Like, just grab a bunch of fishing nets, throw in a bunch of meat, and GG, you have more food you could ever need, right? Plus, the farming mechanics in Build42 make this even worse, as they made farming so complicated and annoying and tedious. I mean, maybe not that complicated, but I just don't like the changes at all, so I don't value the farming levels. In multiplayer, you might as well not even trade farm. Your plants will just rot while you are offline. Inventive. This is probably my favorite trait from Build42, of the new traits. Probably my favorite. This is such a cool idea, and I love how they did it. What this does is allow you to learn recipes and craftings at one level lower. This includes generators, so you only ever need level 2 electrical to operate a generator. You don't need to hunt down magazines ever again, right? That's such a great change, since with the new literature changes, magazines can be a bit trickier to find. This is even more amazing in multiplayer, since magazines are significantly harder to get. So I really love this. I think Inventive is a great trait. You're going to learn a lot of recipes early, which is going to make all of your early skill grinds much easier. Light Eater. I just can't see it. I can't see that when you'd ever want this. It's just not worth the points. Look, for 2 points, you get Dextrous, Cat's Eyes. You're saying 2 points for Light Eater. It is not equal. Food is super easy to get in Build42 as well. They made it a little harder. It's still very easy. You could loot an entire Gigamart and never kill a single zombie. I mean, recently I cleared the Moldraw police station with 0 kills, and I did it in about 15 minutes. Like, it's very simple to get rid of zombies, right? And a whole Gigamart play has enough food for months. For multiplayer, there's a use here probably, but I still don't value it for 2 points. There's so many better things you could take. Low Thirst. A week ago, I would have said this was very niche. Now I'm saying it is probably the worst trait in the game. It is possibly a negative trait in disguise. Why? Because one of my very brilliant commenters told me recently that with the new liquid mechanics, you can combine alcohol, milk, and juice to basically have a god drink that removes all panic, stress, and unhappiness at the same time. You can also throw in a little coffee or cola, and you'll actually reduce your fatigue, your need to sleep as well, which is insane. So with the new liquid mechanics, you can do some really crazy stuff, and low thirst actually makes it worse because you don't drink as often, so you don't get the effects as often. Mason. I find masonry to be remarkably easy to level, to be honest. So I don't think +2 is going to really help you. The XP boost is good. So if you do plan to do some masonry, it's an okay pick. Combined with the book XP multipliers, it does have some niche use, but I'm not even going to put it in niche at this point. The thing is that stones are so easy to get, right? You just walk around, find some large stones in the forest, boom, knock those into 10 normal stones, boom, create some stone blocks. It's also super AFK. Just throw a ton of stones in like containers or on the ground, and then you can just AFK it. Like you need to take a 5-minute break. Okay, great. AFK your masonry while you're gone, right? It's super nice. And I do a lot of the AFK stuff in multiplayer as well. Outdoorsy. In the past, I really overvalued outdoorsy, I think. I'm actually going to put it in okay. I think it's a great take. You're not really going to hurt yourself by taking outdoorsman or outdoorsy, but I don't think it's 100% necessary. There are so many ways to avoid like the rain, and recovering from a cold is super easy. I want to say this is like more important in speedruns or multiplayer where your clothes and the weather can be a lot more unpredictable, because in speedruns we also need to spend a lot of time outside, which means we do get colds and we do starve the entire time, so we take a lot of damage. Since we have thirst issues, so it is a bit better in your speedruns. Just like a few other traits, Wakeful. With the new like longer days, I'm so conflicted on this trait. I'm going to throw it in niche. Okay, I'm starting to lean really heavily against the wakeful at the moment. With the new darkness levels, I really don't recommend ever fighting at night. Like never fight at night. It's super dangerous. You're gonna catch an early death. I would say this isn't bad at all, but I can't say it's like a good trait, right? I gotta put it in niche. Maybe you have a use for it. Maybe there's some combination of traits you can do. Like I don't like the combinations of traits, and I'm not using them. Like I know you can take wakeful with like restful sleeper, but they're gonna fix that bug. They're gonna fix that. Just like the agoraphobic, claustrophobic thing, they're gonna fix it. So I'm not gonna use that as like an idea of how to rank wakeful, because I know they're gonna fix those bugs, right? Just like the caffeine pill bug, where it reduced all your tiredness instantly, right? I knew they were gonna fix that, so I never used that as an idea for ranking wakeful. I just think you already have enough time during the day. You don't need to stay awake longer. It's better to just go home, do your AFK stuff, and then sleep when you're tired, or just grab a beer and fall asleep sooner, right? I don't think the extra wakeful time, I think it's almost a negative, because there's not enough to do at night. If you get too tired too easily, maybe you take it, right? Maybe it helps you. Definitely always try to keep caffeine pills, coffee, or tea on you. You can just eat the coffee and tea, by the way. You don't actually need to make it into a drink. Also, cola now reduces your tiredness by a little bit, so in a pinch, it is an option. Whittler. I can't really put much value on carving. It's not that I think the skill is worthless, but I think that's just super easy to level, right? I'll put it in bad. It's not worth 2 points. I'm sorry. It's just the same as masonry. It's bad. These skills are so easy to level. You're not going to waste 2 points on this trait. You just go pick up some sticks and some planks and you craft it, right? It's a bad trait. Don't take it. Crafty? Oh yeah. I'm going to love crafty. Come on. If there's anything that's more me-coded, it's crafty. I love XP bonuses, because when you start adding other multipliers, you get the crafty XP bonus. Fast learner. You get a book. You get some extra skills in that. You got some crazy XP bonuses going off on each other. You can level stuff really fast. And I hate grinding. I hate any type of time that I spend grinding in a game instead of doing things that are fun in a game. I despise anything tedious. I'm a speedrunner. I want to go fast, and I like playing Zomboid fast, and I always play it fast. The only time I wouldn't take this if I was doing like a kill speedrun, right? Or some kind of kill challenge where you don't actually need to do crafting. So in multiplayer, you could maybe not take this, right? Iron Gut. God, it's a terrible trait. This is worse than low thirst. This is the worst trait, I think, maybe out right now. Number 1, just stop eating rotting food and dirty water. And number 2, you actually can 100% eat rotting food and drink dirty water with no problem. You just can't do too much, right? Like I have a friend in multiplayer. He spent like 2 months only drinking dirty water, never had any problems with it, right? And I can eat rotted food constantly in build 42 and never get sick. So just tell me, what value could this ever have? Like this is one of those ones where I can't even think of a niche use for Iron Gut. Keen Cook. I don't really value cooking. I have no value of cooking, and cooking is crazy easy to level. Like even in multiplayer, you can get tons of cooking XP so easily. Now magazines are hard to find sometimes, sure. But so you might want certain cooking recipes, and you may never find that magazine. So this might be a time where you take Keen Cook. Like, come on, why do you need these special recipes? Just cook a stir fry, a stew, like a normal person. Like just make some eggs and eat the eggs. Actually, okay, little hint here for you guys who are still watching. You can level cooking from 1 to 10, assuming you start with the right traits, obviously with Keen Cook, right? And as a chef, you can actually get max cooking with 10 eggs, I think is the math I did. So you only need 11 boxes of eggs, you'll have max cooking. It's super easy. And you don't even worry about burning it because it doesn't matter. Like, you still get the same amount of XP whether you burn something or whether you don't burn something, which I actually think is really silly. That's really silly, right? I think if you burn, I think you should get like an XP tick, and then if it burns, you get XP removed or something. I don't think you should get equal XP when you fail to cook something, right? I think that's really silly. I know in one of our speedruns, the cake percent, where you create a cake as fast as possible, the world record's like 1 minute, 20 seconds or something, but that speedrun has a caveat that you have to eat the cake and it can't be burnt. So I think that's like a way, maybe they can change cooking to not allow burnt food. Vehicle knowledge, pretty much a must have. Pretty much a must have. Yep, it's pretty much 100% necessary. Why is that? Well, there's nothing more frustrating in this game for me than not being able to do the most basic of tasks without a magazine. They're way too dependent on this magazine system. Now, they did make some changes to it, which I'll talk about in a moment, but I still think the magazine system is a little annoying. Now, I recommend this as a must-have because of how Project Zomboid handles mechanics, right? You should not need a magazine to change tires or uninstall stuff. It's not that hard. Like, I would understand it maybe for like fixing a battery, fixing an engine, right? Or like fixing it better, not just taking it out, right? Like maybe taking out a gas tank. That's probably complicated, right? But not to change the tires. Come on, bro. In multiplayer, this is 1000% a must-have. Since the magazines can be really rare. Adrenaline junkie. Ugh, this is awful. Like, okay, sure, they nerfed the points 4, which is really good, but it's still 4 is still too much for this. For the points it costs, I really cannot recommend anyone take this trait. I just don't think it's worth it. It means like you also can't have a claustrophobic or a agoraphobic, which are like must-have traits at the moment. They're some of the best traits in the game because panning has become so easy to manage. All you need is 10 milliliters of beer. That bug still exists. It will fix all your panic. And even if they fix that bug, you just mix in about 10% alcohol with your water bottle and your panic will drop so often that you'll always be able to sleep inside or outside, right? Also, that one bug where you speed up time and just sit there for like 10 hours, you'll eventually be able to sleep again. So really interesting how these bugs are working lately. And these are like the panic bugs. They're very complicated in Zomboid. So we're going to move on from Adrenaline Key. All it does is give you a minor speed gain. Speedrunners do usually take it, but only if we have extra points, which is rare. All right, so let's go to Angler. This is terrible. This is an awful trait. I'll put it in awful, not never, because it does have a small use. Fishing got much, much, much harder in Build 42 and much slower with the removal of spearfishing and with the new minigame being added. Now, the minigame has been improved a lot since Build 42 first came out. You can now actually like speed up time while you're fishing and it'll automatically go back to normal time when you have a fish. So that's pretty chill, right? That's pretty nice. But with the farming changes also becoming much harder, I do value fishing a bit more than I did in Build 41. It's very niche since fishing nets are super OP in Build 42. Even with the bug fixes, they're still very strong. Now, one neat little fact you might not know is you can actually take this with the angler profession to start with for fishing. That's a really high level and it's going to be credible in the speed runs. You know, speaking of that's an interesting thing. Why is there some things that you can take? Like you can't take vehicle knowledge with them as a mechanic, but you can take angler as a fisherman. There's certain you can take handy as a carpenter. I always wondered why these interactions were never like made standardized, right? They're not standardized. It's very odd. Baseball player. This is going to be one of the most niche things in my opinion. And that's actually because of I recently changed the way I think about baseball player. Okay, I'll say this. I'll start with this. For 4 points, I really don't think a single level of long blunt is worth it at all. It's not worth it. Yeah, it has other benefits. It's not a good trade, okay? And long blunt is very weak in Build 42 due to the muscle strain. I think short blunt or short blade are actually the top 2 melee builds at the moment. Maybe axes is pretty good, but I still actually I love short blade right now. One unique multiplayer niche for this though, which why I put it in niche, is that most servers start you with a starter pack. And that starter pack has a hammer and a baseball bat. Actually, some speedruns take this because we start in the school or near the school, especially in Riverside, right? And that means we have a baseball bat automatically in the school. It's really nice in the speedruns where you don't have a guaranteed weapon like in Rosewood. Brave, it's okay. I'm gonna put it in okay. I mean, I think it's a poor choice for sure, especially for 4 points. Again, I make this decision because number one is you just live longer. Your panic becomes less and less of an issue. In multiplayer, panic is even less of an issue as well. And again, the liquid mechanics, you just mix in alcohol with your water and everything, all your problems go away, right? And on top of that, if you take brave, you cannot take cowardly, claustrophobic, or agoraphobic, which are all S tier traits in my opinion. Like they're all amazing, easy to play around. And yeah, I think brave is definitely a very questionable trait unless you really, really hate panic. I'm gonna put eagle-eyed in never. Your vision radius gets so big, you will never be able to speed up walk to, like through hordes at all. We call it threading the needle, where a zombie can be visible to you, but not detected by your character. So you're still able to speed up time around that zombie. But with this, your radius gets bigger. so your character detects zombies more easily, and you cannot speed up time. So you're going to basically lose so much time in single player from this. It's a massive time loss that I don't find acceptable in single player. In multiplayer, it has a little more niche value since you can't speed up time, right? I'm going to put it in niche. No, I'm going to have to put it in never. This is a bad trait. It's a bad trait, y'all. This is an awful trait. First aider. God. How on God's green earth has Indie Stone still not found a way to make first aid useful? I'm going to actually crash out about first aid. This has got to be the most worthless skill in the game for like the last 11 years. 4 points for first aider, bro. Compare that to like the graceful or like something. Like, Jesus, this is an awful trait. You know, first aid is worthless because you just shouldn't get hurt. And number two, even if you get hurt, you don't need first aid to heal yourself. Maybe if the health mechanics were more complicated, please God, Indie Stone, don't make health more complicated. Everything is more complicated now. I am just shocked by how bad first aid is. Has anyone ever found a use for this skill? Speeding up time. You can just speed up time. It doesn't matter if it takes a month to heal, you can just sit in a room for a month and speed up time. It takes no time at all to heal. So is there a use? Maybe in multiplayer there's a use? I don't know. But multiplayer, you could just die and make a new character, right? Like, I don't know why you'd even wait for an injury to heal. I would just instantly just end the character and make a new one. Okay, we got graceful. Makes less noise while moving. It's okay. Graceful's pretty okay. There's also a niceness to it where you shoulder bump zombies and you have a smaller chance to trip, which I think is pretty okay, right? And only 4 points, I think it's a decent skill for sure. Decent skill for sure. Now, one thing that is interesting about stealth and Zomboid, though, is that we're going to go to this actually right now. And as this is kind of part of graceful, is why inconspicuous is awful. Not a never, an awful trait. Is that Zomboid has 2 types of stealth: visual stealth and audio stealth. Visual stealth does not work. Also, if you think zombies can't see you in the fog, they can see you in the fog. Their pathing does not care about like the fog at all. It will see you through everything, even like thunder sounds, right? Zombies don't actually get attracted by the sounds that much. They're all gonna go to you instantly. And if a zombie sees you for a split second, that zombie knows you're there. You will never visually stealth past zombies if they're looking at you, right? Which is actually very realistic, and I'm okay with that. But audio stealth, oh, that's a very big deal in Zomboid. So I think graceful definitely has some value because of that for sure. And I like stealth in Zomboid. Stealth has a great use, especially in some speedruns and multiplayer. Herbalist, I've been putting this in must-have a lot. I kind of think it's must-have, right? I'll put it in excellent. I'll put it above everything else except fast reader. Now, here's why I put herbalist in excellent. I consider it almost a must-have, but not quite there. Food is much harder in Build 42. I've said this before, right? Maybe still not that hard, but it is harder. And being able to identify the foods you can eat is incredibly important. Now, of course, you can find the magazine. Again, I'm telling you, magazines are much harder to find, okay? So you can't rely on magazines anymore. For multiplayer, I think this is 100% a must-have. Foraging plays a huge role in a lot of your new crafting skills and your food acquisition, right? You need to be able to forage, and you need to be able to forage well, and this is a great trait to have for it. Now, let's go to nutritionist. I am so sad that this is still 4 points. Actually, I'm going to say that this is probably one of my favorite traits in the entire game. I think it's so much fun to see the calories and nutrients in food and like stuff I cook, right? But 4 points is insane. Like, you can 100% never afford to take this trait compared to the other 4 point traits, right? You can never take this. I think it should be like a 0 point trait or a 1 point trait or just built into the game, honestly. It's such a cool thing to have. It's so much fun in multiplayer and single player. And I'm so sad I never get to play with it. I never get to play with nutritionists because it's just not the efficient thing to do. Organized, all terrible trait. I'll say bad. I'll say bad. I would have put it in awful in Build 41, but Build 42, maybe I value storage a little bit more than before. I don't value it much at all, but a little bit more than before. Because here's what. Why do you need storage? You don't need storage. The game has infinite storage built into it. It's called the floor. Most crates at most can maybe hold like 60, maybe 70. The floor can hold 50. The floor does not get reduced by disorganized or organized, right? The floor is neutral. Just throw everything on the floor. It's so much easier than dealing with like random containers and forgetting where stuff is. I mean, I just don't like it. I don't like it. I just put everything on the floor. It's that easy, right? Yeah, moving on from that. In multiplayer, maybe you need it a little bit more, but if you're really worried about storage, just create an alt with organized whose job is to put stuff in the storage, right? Resilient, terrible trait, awful trait, garbage. This has no benefit to your character. Oh, you become a zombie slower. Okay, you're still a zombie. I mean, I actually stand by the Build 41 here. You're still a zombie. Like, once you're infected, why keep playing? It's not fun. Drink the bleach, man. Drink the bleach. Also, like it says, oh, you don't get colds as easily. Just don't get a cold. Pretty easy. Also, if you get a cold, you can cure it in like a single day. And moving on from that, like there's not much to say about this. It's just a bad trait. Runner. I still value Runner a lot. It's a really, really good trait, especially with the Project Zomboid map getting bigger. It becomes even more valuable, right? But there is a caveat to this. If you wanted to argue against taking Runner, one really good argument is get a car, bro. Getting a car is like the easiest thing in the world to do. Like, it's so easy. Just get a car. But it is still a good trait, especially in multiplayer or speed runs. You 100% must have Runner. Without the FF Walk 2 speed up, you're so slow in multiplayer. It's painfully slow. So I would say multiplayer or speed runs, you must take Runner at all times for that extra movement speed. So this is so sad, because I love tailoring speedruns. Sower's awful. It's a terrible trait. +1 tailoring for 4 points. 4 points, yo. 4 is crazy. And tailoring is already a nearly worthless skill. Like, all tailoring's really gonna do is let you attach stuff to backpacks, and you can sew things. Literally, you can just make armor. You don't need that. Like, if you're relying on protection or clothing to save yourself from zombies, you're already going to die eventually, right? You're just delaying the inevitable with protection. Now, I will say, being able to get level 4 tailoring on spawn with the new build 42 occupation, though, is so fucking good. Tailoring speedruns are probably my favorite speedrun in Project Zomboid, and they're so much fun and so dynamic, and I'm so excited about build 42 tailoring runs. I think they might actually pop off. They're just so unique, you know? If you've never seen my tailoring run, you really should check it out. It is such a fun run to do, and it's got so many different things you must balance at the same time. It's probably like one of the purest Project Zomboid speedruns as well. Gymnast, I love Gymnast. I'll say to this day, Gymnast is still underrated. Now, you might be thinking, you might be watching this video and thinking, no, it's not. Everyone loves Gymnast. You don't know, man. You don't know people. You don't know some of the stuff I see online about people, because they underrate Nimble so much. I would say Nimble is the greatest combat skill in the entire game of Project Zomboid. It is the most important one that you have. I almost always take Gymnast, because Nimble is going to affect my combat movement speed. So while I'm actually swinging that axe, you know, that business, I'm backing up faster. Zombies are running up on me, grabbing at me, biting at me, you know, putting little teeth in me. You're going to be backing up faster than the zombies, which even makes gun combat better, right? There are very, very few circumstances where you do not take Gymnast on every single build, and that circumstance is if you're going 100% gun. Then, yeah, you probably could get away with not having Nimble. Same for Runner too. If you have guns, you can do a lot of stuff that is not the same, you know, especially with how strong guns are in Project Zomboid Build 42. Blacksmith, I put in niche, actually the most niche, because of this. It's a very, very late game activity that you do not need to do. You can just not do blacksmithing. You're fine, right? You can just loot everything you need. But if you want to do blacksmithing, then this is basically a must-have trait. You need so many magazines for blacksmithing, you will struggle on single player to find them. A lot. And in multiplayer, 100% a must-have. The magazines will be impossible to find, so always take this if you ever plan to do blacksmithing. One option is to have a blacksmith character that has this and is an alt that just sits at your base and crafts your metal for you. That's a very nice trick in multiplayer. Brawler. This is an interesting trait. The cost is very high, 6 points, and I do not value axes like nearly as much as I have in the past. I think they're significantly weaker. Long blunt is useful in certain circumstance, as I mentioned with baseball player, so I'm not going to reiterate everything. It's a very niche trait, but it's a little bit too good to be in niche. Fast healer, I'm going to put it in awful. 6 points is a lot of points, but it does actually do a little bit in build 42. It does make your healing faster, right? I mean, I've proven that multiple times, but it's really simple. Do not get hurt and you will be okay. I'm going to put it in awful, not never, because it does have a benefit in multiplayer where healing is much slower. Fast learner, must have. Can't play without fast learner, bro. I value my IRL time and speed over anything in Project Zomboid. Number one thing in Project Zomboid for me is going fast and quick. I value my IRL time and speed over anything in Project Zomboid. It's my number one goal. It's the number one way I play Zomboid, is to do Zomboid as fast as humanly possible. So this is a must-have trait, especially with how important the skills are in build 42. I'm going to put this in must-have. Now, you might be saying to yourself, that's the weaker one. Why? And if you watched me before, then, you know something definitely changed. This is why I said, don't listen to my build 41 video when I'm talking about build 42. Build 42 has huge problems with endurance, and you do need to at least fit the function as a proper character. There is no point in having tons of skills and positive traits if you're so slow, zombies can walk you down. Former Scout. I have been a pretty big fan of Former Scout for a long time. While the +1 first aid is Absolutely worthless. Don't make me crash out again. I enjoyed the +1 foraging and the +1 fishing a lot, since fishing levels are quite valuable at the moment. And for 6 points to get 1 foraging and 1 first aid, really, really solid. Angler isn't awful because it's 4 points for 1 fishing. This is literally like cheaper, right? Like this is a fantastic trade. Hiker, I'm going to put it in good. Now, you might be saying, why is Former Scout excellent at the end of excellent? Keep that in mind. But Hiker is at the top of good because I value the fishing slightly more than I value trapping. Simple as that. I think trapping's easier to level. Trapping's much more AFK, right? The foraging radius modifier is super good on this as well, and the reduction of darkness and weather effects on foraging is really good. So if you're going to do foraging in multiplayer, you must take this trait. It becomes like almost a must-have in multiplayer, but in single player, you can do like the speed up walk to foraging, and you can get foraging done very, very quickly. Keen hearing, never. Awful. Keen hearing is terrible trait. Garbage trait, even for 6 points. And the reason is that hard of hearing is the best negative trait in the game, maybe. So you can never take this. If you take keen hearing, your vision radius becomes so big behind you that you're never going to be able to do efficient FF speed up walk tos, right? In multiplayer, there's a little bit of an argument for this, but a very, very small one. Just look behind you, then you don't need it, right? Stout, slightly more important than fit. Similar to fit, I think at a minimum, you need this level of strength to function as a character without significant muscle strain, which is going to reduce your damage to absolutely nothing. This is a clear must take. I value it slightly over fit because of the +1 strength. Handy. I like handy. It's very good. Handy's a really good trait. I'm going to put it in okay though, because it's kind of just okay, right? With the removal of disassembly XP, the extra carpentry level and XP boost gives you a lot of extra recipes that you can use to level much more easily. Level 1 maintenance is also very nice since it unlocks so many new recipes and allows you to repair your weapons, which break much easier. The carving is a bit more mess since it's so easy to level. Masonry seems useless, I guess, but I could be wrong there. That depends on your playstyle a little bit. But it's a solid take. It's definitely a solid okay take, right? Thin-skinned. This is a never take. I don't value this trait whatsoever. I mean, I play Project Zomboid literally naked. Like, my character has almost never worn clothes in Project Zomboid, and I don't plan to start wearing clothes. They slow you down and they weigh too much. It's basically a meme at this point with me and how I play Zomboid. But the guy in his underwear being the best speedrunner in the world is a trend I must continue. But to be serious, don't take this. It's bad. Let's talk about wilderness knowledge. I'm going to put it here in excellent. I'm going to be honest with you right now. I have had to repeat this trait like 10 times because it's very hard to explain why it is slightly better than Herbalist. It's double the points. 8 is a lot of points to budget, okay? But look at what you get with Wilderness Knowledge. 1 carving, 1 foraging, 1 napping, 1 maintenance. That is an insane amount of level 1 skills with XP boost that are very important skills as well from a single trait. It's insane. If you're going to do any crafting or any crafting speedruns, you must have this in Project Zomboid. Let's talk about Hunter. Hunter is really, really excellent in build 42. Now, why? I've been a Hunter for years. But with guns actually becoming the superior fighting option in build 42, minus pipe bombs, take pipe bombs out of the equation, they are actually the #1 way to fight in Project Zomboid right now. Hunter's even better than it used to be. I would consider possibly to go middle of the pack here. Yeah, possibly go middle of the pack here. Athletic. I think this is probably the craziest pick of mine at the moment, but I do think that right now you don't need max strength and fitness to play Project Zomboid. So let's talk about athletic. Athletics going in the bottom of good, which if you've ever seen me play Zomboid or watch my build 41 tier list, this is going to seem really crazy to you because I've always said I value max fitness and strength so much. And that's because it was important in build 41. The most efficient way to kill zombies was to use an axe. Now, shotguns were good, but you still needed max fitness and strength. In build 42, guns have gotten so much better that you actually don't even need max strength and fitness. You can just kill zombies with guns and pipe bombs. Easy, right? Now, I'm always putting strength over fitness because I slightly value the carrying capacity over the extra ability to run, because you can always just do fast rest in Project Zomboid, right? Where you sit down and you speed up time to the max, like 5x, right? And then you hit Shift W to stand up and you'll never have endurance issues again. Very nice trick. Finally doing the much awaited and frequently requested build 42 negative rates tier list. I ain't gonna waste your time. Say hi to Pico, that's my bunny. Let's go. And what better place to start the tier list than with high thirst? Probably the single-handedly the #1 trait that got nerfed the hardest from build 41. Back in build 41, you probably could just get away with 2 water bottles. Like even in my build 41 tier list, I did kind of hate on high thirst a little bit, but now I'm saying it's actually one of the worst traits in the game. Hands down, one of the worst. But it's not as bad as a couple of them we're going to get into soon. I don't think I need to explain this. You're going to need like 4 liters of water a day or something. It's absolutely ridiculous how much water your character needs now in build 42. And that brings us to another trait, That is a never have. That's also a +1. Sunday driver, which I must say is still one of the worst traits in the entire game. It will get you killed, and especially with the current issue with towing in build 42.13, it's even worse. Don't take it. Trust me. All thumbs. I'm going to put never. Oh, I'm going to put never. You know my state on this. I don't like wasting my IRL time doing stuff in a game that is not fun, right? And actually, this is worse in build 42 because you actually need to carry around a lot more heavy stuff. Gasoline is much heavier, right? Liquids are much heavier. And all the stone, large stone stuff, that's 40 encumbrance, right? A lot of things have been changed. Encumbrance has been changed. It's really easy to get overweight in build 42, which means you're going to spend more and more time transferring inventory. So this is a pretty bad negative trait. There's another downside that is new to build 42. You can no longer craft while moving with this one, which is kind of a pretty cool quality of life feature, I think, that I'm kind of glad they added. And I think this taking away that quality of life feature kind of feels bad. Clumsy. I'm going to put clumsy in, I might even go to up to excellent. I might change this later, okay? But right now we're going to stick with excellent. +2, and all it does is the exact same as build 41. It makes your footsteps about 20% louder. It gives you like a 25% trip chance, but I do think the tripping mechanic has changed in build 42. I don't seem to trip nearly as often when going over fences, so I do think they adjusted this a little bit and made it a little less punishing. Now, audio stealth is a thing in Zomboid. Where visual stealth is not, audio stealth is still a thing in Zomboid. So it is something you can consider as if you really want to have that audio stealth. That's kind of a you decision. I don't think stealth is that valuable. Cowardly. I think cowardly is absolutely fantastic. I don't like panic. I've said this before, that I do think panic is a detriment to your character, but I don't think cowardly is really that big of a deal. And now let's start discussing some of the multiplayer aspects, because build 42 speedrunning isn't really a thing right now, right? But multiplayer 100% is. All thumbs is even worse in multiplayer. Sunday driver, all even worse in multiplayer. Cowardly is significantly better in multiplayer. We're actually going to put it down into good. I'm not going to put it in excellent. The panic is kind of annoying, but in multiplayer, your character's panic is based on the days that the server has existed, not your character's individual life. So if a server's been running for many weeks, your character will not get nearly as panicked. So we're going to move on to a couple. I'm going to go get a few of these easy ones out of the way. I'm not going to necessarily go in order. Let's put motion sickness down in never. And I want to actually discuss this because this is one of the newest traits. A lot of the other build 42 tier lists do not have motion sickness at all because it's a very new trait. Let's talk about it because this is a nasty trait. Basically what happens is you get motion sickness in a moving vehicle. Now what this actually means is if you drive for about 30 seconds IRL, your character is going to go all the way to sick. Your health is going to start plummeting. And if you happen to go into a room with 2 or 3 zombies, the corpse sickness can instantly kill you. This will kill your character. Your character can just randomly die inside a car if you have motion sensitive. Let's say you got scratched by a zombie. Your health is around 60%. Motion sensitive will kill you. Let's say you're carrying really heavy stuff. Well, that's going to drop you to 75% health. Motion sickness is going to drop you down even more. I'm mixing up sensitive and sickness. That's fine. Same thing, right? This is a really dangerous trait, and I literally recommend never, ever touching this trait, at least until it is adjusted a little bit, because this is pretty bad, okay? Fast metabolism. Okay, I'm going to put this that's the first one in niche, okay? Because in single player, this is not a good trait, okay? Clearly, this is -1 fitness. This is never going to be good, but it does have a niche benefit where in multiplayer, it's actually pretty easy to end up gaining a lot of weight. And this can actually be nice because you're not going to have to manage your calories as much. Since in multiplayer, a lot of the food is going to be rotten, right? A lot of the low calorie foods. So you're not going to be able to maintain your weight as easily as you do in single player, especially since you can't just speed up time and starve yourself over and over again, right? Another thing is that multiplayer right now has a exploit that I've been using a lot, where when your fitness and strength XP is infinite. So if you go to do your exercise, right? Your character finally stands up, they're exhausted. You just leave it alone. Don't move, don't touch anything. I mean, you can open your skills and look, but you're going to notice your fitness and strength XP never stop going up. And I've gone from level 0 to 5 in maybe 45, 50 minutes in a pretty boosted XP server with just this bug. So not bad. Definitely decent for multiplayer if you have trouble with your weight. The -1 fitness is pretty bad though. Short-sighted. Oh, it's bad, y'all. It's bad. It's really bad. The only reason I don't put it in awful is because there is a way to counteract the situation. Short-sighted does the same thing it did in build build 41. But the big difference now is that short-sighted is going to blur your vision. Your actual monitor will look blurred compared to not having short-sighted. And the only solution to this is to find prescription glasses. Not just any glasses, prescription glasses, which can be a little rare. Now, the reason it goes in bad and not awful, because it is awful. Like, it actually gives me motion sickness when I look at it. I'm not even joking. I literally get headaches when I have when I have short-sighted, okay? I get actual headaches. So it's gonna go in bad just because if you do wear the glasses, you can fix this problem, right? Slow metabolism. Again, I kind of want to put this in niche because they're both gonna... Slow metabolism is a little bit worse than fast metabolism because you do lose some running speed and some endurance, right? So not the best thing you're gonna want to see. So I would say it's a little bit worse because of one thing. It's actually easier to gain weight than it is to lose weight. The reason slow metabolism is a little bit worse than fast metabolism is that it's much easier, in my opinion, to gain weight than to lose weight. So you can very easily get rid of the low weight trait, where getting rid of the high weight trait can take significantly longer. So that's kind of an interesting thing you need to think about. But both are niche because if you really need those 2 points, well, I mean, one fitness isn't the end of the world, right? It does have its place. Slow reader, I would say a never take. I'm gonna say it's a never take. I'll be a little nicer than last time, okay? I'll be a little nicer. I'll put it in awful, okay? Also, shout out to the guy who made this tier list. This thing is like one of the best I've ever seen on this website. This is incredible. I'll throw the link in the description. This is absolutely fantastic. I'll be using it for my positive traits video as well. So let's go back to slow reader. I don't like my IRL time being wasted, and I will say that this is actually even worse in build 42 for one reason. We have a lot more skills now, like a lot more skills. So we actually need to read more books, right? And skills are more important. Weapons break more easily. Weapons are harder to get. The loot tables are bigger, which means finding individual items can be tougher. We actually need to craft things, right? I would say that reading is more important in build 42 than build 41. And we also lost VHS, which is one of the most powerful tools for being able to increase our character's power without reading. So yeah, I'm gonna say it's awful. Get fast reader. You're gonna really appreciate it. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Smokers, pretty bad, y'all. It's pretty bad. It might go into awful. That's gonna go into awful, y'all. It's gonna go into awful. I'm sorry. You're gonna find that this is actually is a pretty even tier list. We just haven't gotten to the good traits yet. Smoker was severely nerfed in build 42. Not as nerfed as High Thirst, of course, but severely nerfed compared to build 41. It is only 2 extra points now, and also it takes away your ability to have athletic, which is a pretty important trait to have. In addition to that, you also have a cough that is pretty annoying and probably will never go away. And yeah, it's going to attract zombies constantly. Boom. You have Smoker and Clumsy. Zombies are going to be running at you from everywhere. Slow healer. I love slow healer. I'm going to say excellent. Not a must-have. Not a must-have because of something. Back in build 41, slow healer was very nerfed. It had some big, serious problems, okay? It was pretty much free points without even thinking about it, right? It is not like that anymore. Now, it actually does slow your healing. So basically imagine let's say a wound heals in X IRL minutes, right? Say 10 minutes, okay? Well, fast healer would heal in 5 minutes, where slow healer would heal in 20 minutes, right? So slow healer is not as good anymore, but again, I have always said, just don't get injured and you won't have these problems, right? Weak stomach, again, is finally a must-have. Our first must-have of the tier list, and build 41, it was also S tier. It actually feels like this is better in build 42. In build 41, even a little bit of burnt or rotten food would kill you. It seems like they updated the poison system because I've been able to eat like a quarter of rotting things and I have not died. I'm not saying test this or trust this. Like, I did die. Like, if I ate too much, I could die, right? Or ate too often. But my character would get sick and then just recover from the sickness. So even with weak stomach, so pretty good. Agoraphobic, claustrophobic. I'm going to put both of these automatically in niche, and I think that's a very reasonable thing. I'm going to put a claustrophobic is slightly better. I'm honestly going to put these above both of these, right? Because both of these have a common solution. You might even go okay with, I'm going to go okay, actually. I know that sounds a little crazy, but they actually do have a solution, right? That the other ones don't have. You gaining weight, losing weight takes time. But claustrophobic and agoraphobic, you can just take beta blockers, or you can still use the old exploit from build 41. They never fixed it, by the way. I've been using this exploit for years, and I want to share it with you today. You only need about 30 milliliters of beer, and you will reduce your panic enough to sleep anywhere. Right? Anywhere. One beer can has about 330 milliliters of beer, right? That is 11 days of sleep for your character on one beer can. Well, do you know how much alcohol is in Project Zomboid? A lot. Like a lot. You want to survive a month? Grab 3 beers. I mean, 3 beers, that's an hour for me. Every night, I need like 8 to go to sleep. But I mean, that's a me problem, right? Project Zomboid characters are the same. We just chug half a bottle of wine and then boom, pass out. You're gonna have a great night's sleep. Zomboid, it works the same way. Conspicuous, must have. Visual stealth in Zomboid has been broken broken for a very, very long time, and it has never been fixed, and build 42 is just as broken. Zombies will constantly try to see you, and they check over 100 times, like 100 times a second, I would say, roughly. I do not know the exact number, but I know it's an insane amount of times. And pretty much visual stealth does not work whatsoever in Project Zomboid. Zombies are constantly looking for you, and they will see you. Don't even try. So conspicuous, 3 points. Hard of hearing, in the past, I have called it amazing. I have called it a god trait, and I have loved it. And to this day, I still kind of stand by it. But it's going to have to go down into good now. In the past, hard of hearing was S tier for me. But now I'm going to have to drop it down to only good. And the reason for that is, to be honest, I think it's gotten significantly worse. In the past, hard of hearing was used by speedrunners because the vision cone behind us would get smaller, therefore we're able to speed up time more. But now the vision code between eagle-eyed, deaf, and hard of hearing, and no change at all, no traits, right, is exactly the same. Hard of hearing, though, has a much bigger problem than it did in build 41. It actually significantly lowers your ability to hear. Like, if you don't have your volume up high in Zomboid, you will not hear house alarms sometimes. Like, I play Zomboid with very, very low volume because I don't like the music like that much. It kind of just gets annoying after a couple hours of streaming, right? So hard of hearing is actually really bad. Sometimes I don't hear alarms, and I never hear zombies behind me. So be very careful with hard of hearing. I think it's still good, but be very careful. Hearty appetite, 4 points. It's pretty excellent, y'all. It's not that hard to eat. It's not that hard to eat. And you also got to remember that your character can just starve for a little while. It's not going to hurt him. Just let him starve. It's not going to hurt him. It'll take like 3 days to even start taking damage, right? So you can actually ignore the need to eat more. Now, you will have to be careful. Like, this is better if you're staying at the base, because being hungry will lower your melee damage, which is something and your carrying capacity, right? These are all things you need to consider, okay? It's still really good, though. I would recommend just carrying around some berries. Like, berries are a fantastic choice. Or if you don't have a lot of reliable foraging, just grab a bunch of like canned tomatoes, canned corn, canned peas. They're super low calorie. Just like eat half at a time. They're trying to keep your calories low, okay? And that'll take care of most of your problems. Prone to illness is another must-have. All prone to illness does is make you get colds a little easier and makes you become a zombie faster. Well, again, who cares if you become a zombie one day faster? You're still a zombie. You're still dead. Who cares if you get a cold? Just don't get a cold. Don't go outside in the rain and get soaked. These are very solvable things. This negative trait doesn't even really change the way you play your game, right? So that's why I think it's really good. Reluctant fighter, also known in the past as pacifist. I am going to put this in a niche one, because if I'm not mistaken, this still works the exact same way as it does in build 41, where you still get gun XP, but you don't get weapon XP. So this is a very niche trait where I actually think guns are much better in build 42 than they were in build 41, especially with the new 13.1 update that really fixed a lot of problems with guns. So now I actually think guns are kind of the way you should play your character. Like, a gun build is really strong. So if you want to do a gun build, or you want to do like multiplayer where you might die, don't have time to get a lot of melee skills, well, Reluctant Fighter becomes a pretty good skill. And that's why I think that's something to definitely to check out. Definitely check it out. I think it has some potential and some niche uses, especially in multiplayer. There we go. So let's move on to this one, which is going to be Sleepyhead. I'm probably going to put it in bad, y'all. You know I don't like sleep. I don't like if you get tired, your ability to recover endurance goes down. Endurance is what's going to keep you from becoming exhausted. If you become exhausted, you're going to move slower. If you become tired, your vision radius gets smaller. You understand where we're going here? Small vision radius, basically small carrying capacity, or small vision radius, inability to recover endurance. This is death. This is the death spiral, right? You've seen it happen a million times. How many times in Zomboid do you not die in one of the two ways? Number one, you just made a split-second mistake and died. And like, it was just like, oh, you just got bit from behind and there's nothing you could do. It was over before you knew it, right? Or two, you got so exhausted, zombies just ran you down. Those are the two main ways we go out, right? And I really feel like you need to be very careful with sleep because of that. So be careful with Sleepyhead, okay? Fear of blood. Okay, I'm gonna have to put this in awful. I did experiment with this. In the past, I was more willing to take this, but I feel like fear of blood has just gotten a little bit stronger, right? I feel like the effect of fear of blood is so intense now. Before, my characters would take over a day to start getting really stressed out, right? Now I'm killing like 3 or 4 zombies and I'm starting to get stressed like immediately, right? I think fear of blood got really bad, and it is 5 points, but stress is like reducing your melee damage by a lot lately, much more than build 41 in my opinion. Like, I think the tooltip actually says the same, but I don't think the code was working, because I see now when I'm stressed, my damage goes down a lot. And also, we have so many other things modifying our melee damage that another thing modifying it, I think, is kind of it's doing some kind of like multiplicative multiplicative. It's doing some kind of multiplicative thing where it's adding in extra reduction in damage. So like say your damage is reduced 50%, well, this is going to make it reduce like 70%, right? Because you automatically have like the 30% from stress. So it's like kind of the way like books and fast learner work together, right? They make each other, everything gets better because you have both. The opposite for this, muscle strain, weapon condition, weapon damage, sharpening, fear of blood, all of these things, your endurance, right? There's too many things pushing together. We need to really be careful about adding in too much stress on top of this. Now let's go ahead and take care of basically 1, 2, 3, and 4, all 5 at the same time. So we're going to go through all of the fitness and strength ones very quickly because they're very similar. Short of breath, faster endurance loss. Okay, this is obviously the best of the bad. You know, I'm super against anything reducing strength and fitness. So there is no niche for this in my opinion. There is no niche, okay? So they're going to go here. And basically it's just going to go down in a scale, and it's a pretty logical scale. Boom. So if you go here, now you got out of shape. Out of shape is slightly better. Short of breath is a little bit better than out of shape here. So they go above each other. Then we go down and we grab ourselves, what is that? Unfit. Unfit is the worst one. Plus 10, minus 4 fitness. That is insane. Your character is going to start with no fitness at all. I'm not going to put it in never because it does have a place. Because you can play with really bad fitness. People do it all the time, right? How many of you have done 0 to hero, right? These can be played around by being very intelligent with how you play Zomboid. And here's a trick. Strength and fitness have nothing to do with how good the pew pew is. And if you can just use guns, then your problem solved. And with Build 42 guns being good at low levels, I'm starting to see a pattern here where these actually have some kind of play. Notice this one is in niche now. Weak. This actually I feel like is not... I'm going to put this one, I'm not even going to put this one in niche. I think it's actually worse because it's the carrying capacity. Everything is so much heavier in Build 42 that I really feel like when you lose that carrying capacity, everything starts going downhill so fast, so fast. So we're actually going to set it up like this. And I think that is where we're going to leave strength and fitness. There's not much to say about this. With muscle strain, we already have so many negative combat modifiers on us that we can't afford to also have low fitness and strength. Plus, zombies are a lot tougher now. You've realized that, right? Zombies are way tougher and we get tired way quicker. So I think it's really important to have that high strength and high fitness, just as important in Build 41, maybe even a little more so. So we'll see. Disorganized, I'll always call a must-have because disorganized has no real no downside in my opinion. Yes, I was wrong in my previous tier list about it not affecting backpacks and stuff. It does affect them, okay? But I don't feel like you need that much storage, right? And if you're worried about storage like capacity, right? Just put everything on the floor. Just put everything on the floor. The floor has 50 capacity. That doesn't change with a disorganized. The floor doesn't change, right? If you're talking multiplayer, well, the trick I always did in multiplayer is I have two tricks. Number one, I put everything on the floor and my friend gets organized and organizes my loot for me. That's one thing. You know, a man such as me, I don't organize my own loot. Number two, I create an alt account called the loot. I call it It's Bringer's Loot Guy, right? The loot meal. And literally, he's a character that sits in my house with organized, and all he does is store my loot for me. I don't see the alts as cheating because server owners, they can like set a number of alts you're allowed, right? They choose how many alts every player can have on their server when they set the server up. So if they set like, oh, you can have 10 alts, well, that's the server owner saying the rule, right? So there's nothing wrong with using alts to solve some of these problems. I use them all the time. And alts are very useful for dealing with the organized, unorganized problems. Slow loss of tiredness while sleeping. I feel like this is worse than restless sleeper, right? Or sleepyhead. This is worse than sleepyhead. Restless sleeper is worse than sleepyhead because sleepyhead, you just need to sleep more often. This is like, you just don't get good sleep and you can't really fix that problem by except sleeping again, which wastes multiple hours every day. Slow learner is a never take. Never. Skills are so important in Build 42. We don't have the VHS anymore. We don't have a lot of the old tricks for power leveling skills like welding. You can't disassemble anymore. Carpentry, you can't disassemble anymore. Getting our skill levels up fast is incredibly important. So slow learner must go in the garbage, in the toilet. It is unplayable. Absolutely horrible. Illiterate. I'm going to put it in niche. In the past, I have put illiterate very high up and I stand by that. I actually like illiterate. And actually Build 42 has done a few things to make it illiterate better, like letting you use generators at level 3, right? That's a great change. And if you take Inventive, you can use generators at level 2. It's a fantastic change. But other skill books have become much more important with just the way the game has changed and how you pretty much have to be able to craft now to survive long term in Project Zomboid Build 42. So I don't value illiterate as much as I used to. I put it in niche because in multiplayer, there actually are benefits to having illiterate. Like I said, sometimes you just have multiple alts on a multiplayer server, right? And you could have one alt that's illiterate whose only job is to fight, and one alt who's not illiterate who can actually read all the books and do all the skilling, right? I love using alts in multiplayer. I do it all the time, and I think it's actually a really fun way to play the game. You get to play a lot of different builds at the same time. That's a lot of these niche ones where they do have uses, but you need to be clever about how you use them in multiplayer. Thin skinned, I'm putting up here, but I'm actually putting it just above that. I'm gonna do it like that because I actually think disorganized does have downsides, right? It can make your character a little more overweight, and it is a bit of an annoyance, right? It's a waste of your IRL time. So I will say it's probably the worst of the must-have. So if you see must-have right now, we have basically 25 points, and then the others you can play around with. Because def, I know this sounds crazy. I know this sounds insane. Putting def above hard of hearing now. I'm actually putting def in excellent because it actually doesn't really do anything. Hard of hearing pretty much already makes you deaf now. Hard of hearing is so overtuned that when I play with it, I literally might as well be playing with deaf. And at least if I'm playing with deaf, I'm not expecting to hear zombies, right? So I'm always turning around and watching my back. And then I can just listen to music or something, right? Honestly, I've chosen deaf in multiplayer so that I can watch YouTube videos while I do slow stuff in multiplayer, okay? So deaf has a place. Deaf definitely has a place. I mean, it's a little silly to put it in excellent, but I stand by it. I stand by it, okay? Out, and we're ranking all occupations after the new update. Let's go. We're gonna start off with a bad one. Fishing guide. Fishing guide is really bad, and let's talk about why. Yes, food is more difficult to find in build 42 without a doubt. N+3 fishing does enable you to fish even in the depths of winter, but food is still easy to find. One foraging though, I like that. Now this is what's keeping it out of awful or trash. Now this is also taking in mind that fishing guide is only -2 points, so it isn't that expensive. You do auto learn some fishing recipes as well, which is kind of nice, since I still think magazines can be tricky to find, especially on multiplayer. The +1 butchering is really negligible. All fishing speedruns would obviously use this for maximum efficiency. Blacksmithing is going into good and eventually probably the bottom tier of good. If you want to do blacksmithing, this is a must-have. And also you do learn all the blacksmithing recipes from the start, and it is cheaper than the blacksmithing trade. With how many blacksmithing magazines there are, this is a very big occupation. The +1 maintenance and short blend does not hurt it either. -6 points is a lot, but it can be worked around by using some free negative traits, which you can discover in my negative traits tier list. This is perfect for blacksmithing speedruns or a multiplayer alt that just does your crafting. Burger flipper, we're going to be putting that in bad, above fishing guide though, because it does have some uses. I would even say it's low-key a little slept on. I have always said, even in build 41, that short blade is very overlooked. It's super easy to make or just find short blade weapons. They spawn on zombies on day 1. Plus you get +2 cooking, basically worthless. We'll talk more about that when we talk about chef. +1 short blade and +1 maintenance, which is quite decent in build 42. And you actually gain 2 points with it. It's still bad. Burglar, this is my first where it might be questionable. Very, very good. I've heard this called the noob trap, and I've called it that in jest, but this is actually the best occupation for anyone new to PZ. The obvious feature is the ability to auto hotwire cars without learning electrical or mechanics, which can have some complexities. But what is overlooked is the +2 sneaking and light-footed. While visual stealth doesn't exist in PZ, basically since how the zombie code works, they will always see you, audio stealth is very much a thing. And for new players who have yet to understand how to manipulate Zeds, audio stealth will save their lives. Nimble again, also +2 nimble, I say is the most slept on combat skill in the game as well, especially for your new players, making this the #1 occupation for new players and the #1 for multiplayer in my opinion due to the lack of speeding up time. I will say the -6 cost now is very significant, so you will have to consider if this is really worth it. Carpenter, very good. Might even go over burglar at this point, because even if you don't value the +4 carpentry, since you can get most of it from the VHS, which is very reasonable, the number of stats and XP boosts from a single occupation is actually crazy. +1 carving, +1 maintenance, +1 masonry, and +1 short blunt for only -2 points is bonkers. The early levels are the most important too, as they usually gatekeep the most easily grindable XP methods. Cooking is an interesting skill. Yes, cooking does increase the amount of food you get from the things you are cooking with, and at level 8 you can cook rotting food. But even though I said build 42 food is harder to get, it's still incredibly easy to get food in Project Zomboid. The oval farm, for instance, has 1,500 eggs. You can get there day 1. Do not worry about food. Now, moving on to here. The new updates to Chef have made it look a lot better. +4 in any skill is a lot. +2 butchering is actually starting to be high enough to be considered as something that matters. I just said +1 butchering is negligible in fishing, but that's because it, compared to what fishing offers, that +1 is not enough for it to actually go up in a rank. But I think that +2 butchering can actually make it kind of equal with burger flipper. +1 short blunt, that's really good. So I think Chef is finally going to edge out burger flipper a tiny tiny bit, but overall these are a super balanced pair and they're effectively equal. Of course, cooking speedruns would always take chef. Construction worker is good. It's good. It's a good trait. This is actually probably the biggest change from my build 41 tier list, where I did not like construction worker at all. And the reason for that is I absolutely adore short blunt in build 42. Low muscle soreness, low endurance, solid damage, easy to craft, short bats. Fantastic. The +1 carpentry isn't always worthless either. It's not worth much, but it isn't worthless. +1 maintenance, oh, that's solid. The +2 masonry is worthless, but this is a remarkably good occupation to take in build 42, in my opinion. Like, you're not trolling if you take construction worker. Unemployed. I am always unsure of how I feel about unemployed. Plus 8 points is quite decent. With the new occupation overhaul and how the points have changed, I think unemployed has dropped a little bit in my mind, because many occupations now offer very significant benefits over just flat 8 points, like making pipe bombs, knowing all blacksmith recipes, moving through trees faster, desensitized. There's a lot of benefits over just 8 points, so I'm going to keep custom occupation in the peak of niche because I think that's where it belongs. DIY expert. This is going to stay at the bottom of good, and it'll always be at the bottom of good. It is just not bad enough to go in the bad, right? Because it does have some value. You get a lot of good early game levels, you get XP bonuses and important skills, but nothing big. And especially with the new trade updates in build 42.16.1, this feels like it was really overlooked. -4 for only 6 overall stat points, and 2 of those are basically worthless. They need to do another iteration of DIY expert, because I've had to re-record this a lot because I've changed my opinion sometimes, because it's so similar to construction worker. It's just worse in pretty much every single way. I wish they would do something to distinguish these two. They're too similar. Doctor trash. This is an absolutely worthless occupation. While there is some usefulness to first aid, such as making injuries less severe or speeding up bandaging, the truth is once you're injured, you can much more easily just die and create a new character without these problems. They can make the +10 first aid and pay me $10 and it's still worthless. Any still needs to fix first aid and maybe even the health system, not just put band-aids on it by upping the first aid levels. Let's talk about electrician. Electrician is a really disappointing occupation. This is objectively just a worse engineer. Both can instantly use generators, and engineers can make traps and explosives without anything. They just automatically can do it, right? They don't need to research any recipes. The +4 electrical is not valuable at all. Anything beyond level 1 is basically no use besides operating generators, which you can do at level 2 and 3. Plus leveling electrical is very easy in build 41. It took 1 hour to max electrical in build 41. It's very easy. In build 42, it's even easier. I will make a note that higher electrical does let you repair generators using less parts, but again, electrical scrap is incredibly easy to get, and it is renewable. There are some other niche things like using lamps without wires. You can make them battery powered, I believe at level 6 if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong on that one, but it's not worth -4 points whatsoever. Why I call it disappointing is I wish it had something special like engineering does, right? Engineering's fun to take. It's good for RP. It's good for expressing yourself. Electrical has nothing unique about it. I wish they would make anything that's kind of cool about electrical. If they could do that, I could maybe even put this up in good, because it is good. 5 electrical, it's a lot of skill and something that does have a use. And then we get to the big dog, engineer. I'm going to put it in S tier. In single player, I do consider engineer to maybe be the best profession in the game. Pipe bombs are so easy to build and so insanely strong at the moment that they really feel incomparable to normal combat methods. The only argument against this is in multiplayer, where you can create an engineering alt, make a pipe bomb, and use that for researching the recipe. I do this every time I play on multiplayer servers. In single player, you can also just find a pipe bomb. Rare, but you can. Pipe bombs can easily kill 500 zombies at a single time, so they're basically beyond approach. They are the best weapon in the game, hands down. Armor trash. Yep. Trash was basically created for farmer and doctor. It's not, I guess it's not unplayable. It's not a troll. It's just like, this is one of the most boring occupations that exists in the entire game. It was bad in build 41. It's bad in build 42. It's not bad enough to make me mad like doctor. It's just really meh. It's a pre-occupation, so that's nice. 0 points, but +4 agriculture and +1 animal care is pretty unexciting to me. Agricultural levels were worthless in build 41 and still next to worthless in build 42. Farming was nerfed so drastically that I think it's a dead skill, especially on multiplayer where your crops are guaranteed to die. I guess farming speedruns will take this, but I doubt anyone will run those anymore, to be honest. Firefighter, sorry, very good. I'm gonna put it there. It is incredibly strong. This is still a remarkably strong build in build 42.16.1. While I don't believe axes are the best weapon anymore for a couple reasons, the extra strength and fitness is still massive. Plus, depending on which starter town you choose, this is awesome for getting certain spawns like the fire station more often. +1 running doesn't hurt either. You know I'm a runner fan. And to top it off, 0 points. Easy, very good in my opinion. Fitness and instructor, I think I spent the most time thinking about fitness instructor, to be honest. It is minus 6 points. It's expensive. And let's talk about it. It feels bad in build 42.16.1. They updated a lot of occupations and honestly did cook a little. Carpentry is super cool now. It's super awesome. Fire officer's great. Lumberjack's still great. Veteran's a god tier. So fit instructor just feels like it's left in build 40. I feel like it got left behind. Nothing really changed. Now, there are some niche benefits, which is why it's in niche. You start with much higher exercise regularity. You gain your regularity faster. You recover from exhaustion faster. You're just better at exercising. So I guess if you plan to exercise a lot, good occupation to take. One caveat, if you are playing with sprinters and are not very skilled, take this. It's going to be really, really useful. Lumberjack, let's go. Lumberjack going to be the top of very good for now. I think this is slightly above fire officer, since even though it doesn't give the +1 strength, it does give faster attack speed with axes, which is really crucial in melee combat. The added +1 maintenance for 0 points is also very, very nice, as the first maintenance level really unlocks so many recipes. Mechanics, pretty good, pretty good. Gonna put it here. Bottom of good. I know I'd say that DIY expert's pretty bad at this, but I still think mechanics is a little less useful. Let's talk about why. Now, it is a very solid occupation if cars are ever a big part of your playstyle. Vehicle knowledge is already 3 points and is a must-have trait in my opinion. So for only +1 more, you get +3 vehicle and +1 welding. Now, first level welding is super important too, as the only way to currently level welding from 0 to 1 is to disassemble cars, which can be difficult to find on multiplayer servers. I think this definitely deserves a pretty high rank. The reason it's the bottom of good is because it's incredibly easy to level mechanics. Nurse, trash. At least it's better than doctor now with night owl, as most nurses usually are. Like and subscribe for more one-liners. Park Ranger, let's go S tier, just below engineer. I'm a big fan of Park Ranger. For only +4 points, we gain 1 foraging, 1 axe, 1 carpentry, and 1 trapping and tracking. A bit less useful. But we also gain faster movement through trees and a much lower chance to get injured, which is not that valuable with the Walk 2 tech. If you use Walk 2, your chance of getting injured through trees is much lower, but not 0. That is important to remember. Police officer, we're gonna go very good here. While it's not veteran, police officer isn't a terrible take. I think it's objectively worse than veteran in almost every way, especially with the changes to veteran that I'll be getting into later. But aiming and reloading are very valuable. It's not a troll occupation at all. And +4 aiming is a lot of aiming. It's to the point where you will be instantly efficient with any gun from the moment you spawn in. Panic can be managed too with beta blockers and alcohol, so there's some viability here. The main advantage of this over veteran though is the ability to take cowardly, claustrophobic, and agoraphobic. It was a tough rank between lumberjack, police officer, and the firefighter, but I think all 3 are completely viable, so I think they're kind of equal. I think rancher is the top of good. I think it's a bit underrated. +4 animal care, +3 butchering, and a worthless +1 farming is really good for only -2 points. I always say food isn't difficult to get in build 42, same as build 41, but I only say that for one reason: animals. Fishing got nerfed, farming got giga nerfed, foraging is roughly the same but a little bit worse. Trapping seems fine, I guess, but my god, are animals amazing. The amount of food a few animals can generate is crazy. With these extra animal care levels, you're gonna get their stress levels down faster, you're gonna get all their needs under control, they're gonna instantly start producing food for you, and they're giving you passive food, which is so important. And I think it's especially good in multiplayer, where you could actually just make an animal alt too to take care of the animals. You know I love my alts. Security guard is bad. I'm sorry, this is bad. I'll put it at the top of bad, but it's bad. This feels like another trait that got left behind. It's only -2, but besides night owl, there is literally nothing special here. I'd see this as not completely worthless, but at the very edge of viability. +1 light-footed is okay, but again, stealth isn't very good in PC. Even audible stealth. Of course, I said burglar was good for audible stealth, but that's mostly for new players, and that's because it has 4 levels helping it out, not 1. +2 running though, probably the best thing here. It'd be good for sprinters if fitness instructor wasn't better. There you go. Veteran. This could be the greatest occupation ever in Project Zomboid. Desensitized is one of the most powerful traits that can exist on a character. It is going to completely remove the concept of panic, greatly increasing your melee damage and your gun damage. This is incredible. And with the new build 42.16.1 update, veteran gains an incredible benefit of being immune to discomfort. That means you can wear all the armor you want, be as protected as you want, and you will never suffer from any consequences. This is of course a must-have for any kill speedrun. Tailoring is the first I put into awful. It's basically created for tailoring. This is really bad. Tailoring isn't that useful of a skill in general. Armor is fine, sure, but it doesn't keep you from dying. It just delays the inevitable. Now, I just said veteran is good because it allows armor. Because, yeah, it lets you wear anything. It lets you wear plate armor. Tailoring doesn't make plate armor. I'm sorry. Like, if you're gonna wear armor, wear the best armor. Don't wear just trash armor, okay? But honestly, I stopped using clothes in PZ a long time ago, besides winter, of course. And I feel like I'm not dying more than usual. I don't think armor is that important, especially considering that tailoring is so fast to level. It is crazy fast to level tailoring. I can't imagine choosing an occupation like tailoring versus like lumberjack or police officer or firefighter. Let's be honest here. Though, of course, tailoring speedruns will love this. And considering tailoring speedruns are my favorite, I'm very excited about this. Welder is pretty good. I'm gonna go niche with Welder, top of niche. The reason I don't go into good with it is because it is actually only useful for like one thing, technically. It is an incredibly important skill if you plan to survive for a very long time or are playing with special settings or maybe on multiplayer. Cars decay and get damaged very quickly, and without welding, you will be struggling to repair your cars. Also, welding is still quite annoying to level, and it's currently the only skill without a renewable resource. But yeah, it needs propane, and technically there's a limit to how much propane exists in the world of Knox County, but there is so much propane in Knox County, you will never run out. And welding does have some very easy ways to level once you start getting a little higher in the levels, so you could probably find enough cars to get level 1, and then you can start doing some other things to level up your metalworking and your welding. I don't think it's good enough to be in good, but I could see some niches where you definitely want to take it. We're going to be ranking all of the new PZ spawn towns today, and the old ones. Since towns are more complicated than traits, I want to explain the criteria I am using first. Number 1, how easy is it to get set up in the town as a new player? This includes zombie pop and the ease of getting a car. Special things about the town and nearby locations. And number 3, the ease of travel to and from the spawn town. We will get the original 4 spawns out of the way, since these have been discussed at length before, so let's go. Now, Rosewood design. The only downside that exists is that it has no VHS store. Now, in Build 42, even with the new VHS buff, VHS still aren't to the level they were in Build 41. So this is something we can forgive. Rosewood is also the only town with a police station spawn, which is very special in my opinion. The fire station is also quite another wonderful spawn, and with both of them right beside each other, I feel it's quite easy to see why Rosewood is so powerful. The zombie pop isn't too high either. It's more than Riverside by a little in my opinion, but as long as you are careful, these Zeds will be manageable. A few other notable things are the bookstore, the school with a full library, the bar near the gated community, the prison armory, and the mechanic shop. And here's a quick bringer tip. There's actually a very special house in Rosewood right here that has a rotating loot table that can be incredibly good. From mechanics items, to books, to weapons, to tailoring gear, I have used this town in so many speedruns, I feel it has to be included. When it comes to ease of travel, Rosewood is an amazing location to easily visit Muldraw, Echo Creek, or even March Ridge. Irvington is also not too far from it. Unfortunately, we are basically cut off from the rest of the map here without huge travel times. And that's going to bring us to Muldraw, the first of our A tiers. I would almost consider Muldraw to be like the default Project Zomboid town. I'm not sure why I do think that, but it really feels like the default town to me. The zombie pop is significantly higher than the majority of other spawns besides maybe Irvington, and definitely West Point, of course. But the loot in Mold can compare to these bigger towns a little honestly, especially if you consider the nearby locations like the McCoy logging warehouses, which have an insane amount of loot. Something in particular I want to mention is that Mold has an absolutely massive police station for a town this size. It is actually big enough to compare to some of the LV police stations in my opinion. Plus, with the relatively low Z pop compared to LV, you can easily be looting this station within about 15 to 20 minutes of starting a brand new character on APOC settings. The Mold school has also been significantly upgraded to include a much bigger library, which was previously lacking. Now, the reason it does get stuck in A tier though is that I think the Z pop, especially on the road where all the loot is, can be quite high sometimes, and that definitely drops it down a little. Travel wise, Mold is in an amazing location and basically one of the most central spawn towns. I think it's a bit too much for a beginner, but it is a great choice overall. Now, Riverside, this is my favorite spawn 100%. I love Riverside. I have used it for tons of speed runs and most of my challenge runs as well. It's my default multiplayer pick. In Build 41, I would have said Rosewood, but I value Axes a bit less now. I think Riverside is the second best beginner town. The main reason Rosewood always wins out is that it basically has nearly the same Z pop as Riverside while having a much bigger police station and a fire station. I just choose Riverside because I like it. In the early game, weapons are so important, and in Riverside, your options are limited unless you're willing to travel a little. Speaking of travel, this is the main reason it goes into A tier instead of S tier with Rosewood. Riverside is only close to Brandenburg, Vallis Creek, and the West Point, and even then, they are still quite a distance away. The most notable thing about Riverside is that there are tons of book spawns. The school library is big for its size. The boat club has quite a decent library, not to mention both the proper bookstore and the mailroom, which is your best source for magazines. Overall, a fantastic spawn choice. Definitely top of A tier. And now West Point. We're going to be getting into our first C tier town here. I struggled a lot with ranking West Point, and I'm still not 100% sure how I feel about this ranking and how I feel about West Point. I played here a lot, and personally, I really dislike it. There may be some bias here, especially with the Build 42 zombie pop making the West Point mansions unviable. West Point also struggles by having some pretty poor spawn locations that are in some pretty bad areas, like very far from the main city, which is something Riverside does have as well, to be fair. But for loot, West Point is nearly unmatched. The gun stores here are basically top of the line, besides Louisville in my opinion, where it comes to accessibility and ease of access. The hardware stores and warehouses are right within town limits as well. The only area West Point could suffer with compared to others is its size, zombie pop, and relatively mediocre book locations. West Point is a no-go for beginners in my opinion, or any high pop run. For experienced players, it can actually be quite OP due to its quick access to LV, plus at a high level of play, the zombie pop is usually manageable. Echo Creek. We're going to throw Echo Creek probably number 3 in A tier. I think that's my idea here. The former possible king of spawns, in my opinion. I absolutely adore Echo Creek as a spawn. It was removed as a default spawn, but the new changes has brought it back to us. It's definitely an A tier spawn. The Z population is quite low, possibly the lowest of all spawn towns. The mechanic shop and gas station are really great early game buildings to have access to, since they will have a good source of short blunt weapons in the form of wrenches, food, and drinks, plus obviously gasoline. Combined with the house above the gas station making a super easy early game base. This is probably the best spawn town for brand new players in my opinion. A few notable things about Echo Creek is that it is very, very small. There's also a chance you end up without a working vehicle, but that is unlikely. It is something to keep in mind though when choosing your trades and your occupations. Lastly, one nice feature of Echo Creek that can actually help all of your other runs is that there is a set generator spawn near the music festival. I know other towns have this and most people know about it, but I figured I must mention it when talking about Echo Creek. Now we get to the true new ones, baby. Ekron, let's go. Ekron is going to be our first B tier trait. Ekron is a place that in all fairness I haven't visited much, so do take my opinions here with a grain of salt. I did do some experimenting with it though, live on my Twitch. Come watch me on Twitch, thank you. And was honestly super surprised how nice it is. The zombie pop seemed only a bit higher than Echo Creek, honestly, but it's a fair bit bigger and has a lot more options for loot. The metalworking shop especially is amazing, and it has a fire station of its own, with everything relatively densely placed, so you can easily get around town even without a car. But speaking of cars, there are some very nice parking lots as well that can supply some cars very early. The main thing holding it back is that it's probably one of the worst locations possible for actually traveling to other towns. This is a similar problem to Irvington and Brandenburg that will come up in the future. Overall, a solid B tier in my opinion, maybe top of B tier. Fallis Lake. Okay, Fallis Lake is going to be below, it might be below Ekron. I'm going to put it above Ekron. The Z population here is about average, so that makes it lean towards this B tier position, but it's actually kind of equal with Ekron in my opinion. I have always been a personal fan of Fallis Lake, but I do recognize its weaknesses. For the amount of loot it has, the Z pop isn't really balanced. The good thing about Fallis Lake, it does have a very nice bookstore and a bar right beside each other, which is definitely useful for your god drink needs. There's a farming supply store, which has some guns, but Fallis Lake is definitely falling quite short on the gun front, though the army quarters do alleviate this somewhat. There is also a major lack of garages or factories nearby, which does hurt it a lot. The location is where Fallis Lake really shines though. You basically have easy access to Riverside, Rosewood, West Point, and Muldrow. So while I don't think Fallis Lake is a good spawn for beginners, for intermediate players or on multiplayer, it can be a really nice location to let you easily access the rest of the map. So pretty much we have two opposites. Fallis Lake, great location, don't love the loot. Ekron, great loot, don't love the location, right? They're about even. Irvington is going to go into C, below West Point in my opinion. I was a bit disappointed by Irvington, honestly. The town really has everything you could want, basically. Metal stores, police stations, gun stores, a great school, mini book locations, and a VHS store. Everything sounds good on paper, but the Z pop is not a joke at all. And on top of this, the good locations are all very spread out, meaning you need to clear multiple areas to access the good stuff. The best and most interesting thing about Irvington is its close access to the Irvington Speedway, which is the only spawn for race cars, which are drip-wise the best car in the game, and by most other metrics, to be honest. This alone keeps Irvington high on the list, but not enough to push it higher since Echo Creek and Ekron are both much closer actually. So C tier for sure, but in multiplayer there's a huge advantage to spawning here on fresh wipes to quickly grab a race car or two for you and your friends. Other than that though, there are almost always better better places to spawn. March Ridge. This is going to be our first and only D tier town. This has to be one of the worst towns I have ever seen in my life. I do not feel that I am describing anything controversial. I do not feel this is a hot take. I think March Ridge is bad. The Z pop is surprisingly high for what I consider mediocre loot. It does have the military apartments, which can have some really good loot, but you are gonna fight for it. Compared to the massive Moldral police station, which is quite easy to clear, it doesn't feel like March Ridge is worth the fight, you know? It also feels like it's just a copy-paste job, which is honestly realistic for a Kentucky suburb, but I don't like it. It feels boring. It feels like it has no real character. Now, March Ridge does have one very cool thing in my opinion, and that is the military bunker. It's super unique, and it really does give March Ridge some character that it desperately needs. But I could never recommend a new player to start in a March Ridge. Maybe a veteran player could make this a solid start if they're able to manage the Zeds. I could see the bunker being a very cool multiplayer base though, so that's something to keep in mind. Travel-wise, I do have to say it's an okay location. It is the closest spawn to Mold and also very close to Rosewood, which are two amazing towns. I'm going D tier because it's basically unplayable for new players or on high pop runs, and because whatever benefits it has, I can just always find another spawn town that is better, right? So that's why it's going to be D tier. It's the only one we're going to see. The rest of the towns are all quite strong. Brandenburg, I'm going to put at the bottom of B tier, and that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. I personally really like Brandenburg for the vibes, and the ship is really cool. It's the first water-based thing we've ever had in Project Zomboid, and if I'm not mistaken, and just the fact it exists makes me excited for what IndieStone might have planned in the future for boats or rafts. I don't know. But as a meta player, I do not think Brandenburg vibes live up to reality. The town is very, very mediocre. The zombie pop is definitely too high for the looted supplies. It's not as bad as something like Irvington, in my opinion, but it's definitely too high for the loot. I personally had to take out over 100 zombies to loot just the school, where in something like Riverside or Rosewood, it could be like 0 to 30 Zeds max. The spread out loot is quite an issue too, since we need to clear multiple large areas to extract the same supplies compared to a very densely packed place like Ekron. But Brandenburg does have some very special places. I was very impressed by the metalworking shop, the bookstore with an apartment above it, and of course the boat itself. The boat existing is why this is in B tier and not C tier. It's just too cool. The reason I'm gonna stay B tier and bottom of B tier specifically is that it might be the worst place spawn town in the game. It pretty much locks you out of every other town without large travel distances. I would say if you are a player who never leaves your town, give this a try. That boat is an amazing base, but if you want to actually see the rest of the map without driving for 20 minutes, maybe you should choose somewhere else. Now, Valley Station, this is actually the one I'm the most excited to talk about. This is gonna go right there above Echo Creek, which if you know how much I love Echo Creek, you know how big of a deal this is. I was very pleasantly surprised by Valley Station. Don't get me wrong, it still has some serious problems, but I am surprised how cool it is as a spawn. It's basically not even a town in my opinion. Like as a veteran player, I think Valley Station has some massive potential as a spawn town. It's not too difficult to find a car. You have an easily accessible gas station nearby, but for beginner players, I think the Z pop is just too high and the sources of weapons too low. Finally, the last nail in the coffin to make Valley Station A tier instead of possibly S tier, it is very on the edge here, is that it is remarkably close to LV, which is great of course for veterans, but for beginner players, they're basically stuck between the two highest pop towns in the game. Not the greatest location in my opinion, but anyways, I will rest my case on Valley Station. I do hope you enjoyed the tier list. I am aware it's a bit top heavy, but the truth is that I honestly believe that pretty much all the spawn towns are amazing. Hello and welcome back to a Bringer video. Today, we go back to tier listing things as we always do. Today, we will be ranking all Project Zomboid B42 non-combat skills. This is going to be a different type of tier list though. Since skills do not compete against each other, and we can have all of them, how can you really rank them? Well, me and Mr. Boba here, my new baby bunny, have come up with 3 criteria for this. Number 1 is going to be early and late game use. Number 2 will be the ease of leveling said skill. And number 3 will just be the overall fun of the skill and how much I really think it adds to the game. Now say goodbye to Mr. Boba. He's a baby. He has to go now. This is going to be very subjective, and I will be leaving minor things out about each skill because I cannot talk about everything in one video. So enjoy and leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm very much looking forward to hearing them. Let's start with blacksmithing. We're going to start with the banger here for real. I'm not going to lie to you. This is probably my favorite of all the new Build 42 skills. I think this is the main skill that really allows you to basically recreate the modern world in a sense, you know? While it can be a bit difficult to level and does take some knowledge to get set up with for the first time, once you get going with it, you can do an insane amount with blacksmithing. Also, the weapons created by blacksmithing are possibly some of the best in the game. The only downside is the absolute crazy amount of charcoal you will need to actually do blacksmithing. It actually makes it a slightly better skill in multiplayer when you have multiple people helping you gather logs. This is not an early game skill at all, but it is worth grinding for. Overall, it is a bit harder to level and to get started with than any other skill on this list, but once you have everything set up, it's relatively easy to max blacksmithing. I would recommend taking the blacksmithing trait though over the occupation. The early levels and recipes are super important, but the occupation is quite expensive. Carpentry. Okay, let's talk about carpentry. I feel like carpentry is the default skill in Project Zomboid, and it kind of is. You know, if you think about it, the Project Zomboid Alpha only had two skills that you could use, cooking and carpentry. You could barricade and you could make soup. If you haven't actually played the alpha, you really should. You can still find it online and it's super fun, but let's talk carpentry in build 42. Usefulness wise, unless you are building something from scratch, there is very little you actually need carpentry for. And it doesn't do that much when it's very easy to like just loot all the furniture you need. It basically just keeps you from breaking the furniture, which is a little unrealistic, especially when it's stuff like moving a bed or even a couch. It's a little silly. And even for rain collectors, you should simply just create them for us. They require no skill and just clay, which is very easy to get. The only thing I feel that requires carpentry is building stairs to plumb sinks. Again, it's a very small thing, but carpentry is so definitely A tier, since even with its limited uses, it is remarkably easy to level. Maybe one of the easiest skills to level in the game, and if you do need to build something, it is one of the only ways outside of metalworking or masonry. I won't elaborate too much since I have discussed carpentry a lot in my videos before. Carving. Okay, we're gonna go B tier here. This is the first B tier, but hear me out. I think carving is actually one of the best skills added to build 42. It is B tier not because it is a bad skill. It is incredibly useful for making easy and renewable weapons, which is very important in build 42 when everything breaks quite easily and quite quickly. This usually comes down to just making short bats and long bats at level 7 and 9 respectively. Carving is also absolutely silly to level. I created a build recently that maxed carving with 10 tree branches. Definitely gonna make a video about that, so subscribe if you want to see that. It's one of the easiest skills in the game to level, but it is incredibly boring in my opinion and very time consuming on multiplayer. The biggest issue is that while you can create some great weapons and useful things like buckets, leveling carpentry is 90% just creating worthless items like forks, spoons, dice, or just literally hundreds of small handles or medium handles to small handles. It's just silly. You're not actually creating anything useful. Of course, some can be used as firewood, but it does feel bad that the entire skill is leveled by creating worthless things that you never use at all, right? I would say overall, this is a top B tier. Since the blacksmithing weapons are objectively better than the ones from carving, it does make it go a little bit lower. I would like to see some lower level items like bowls especially, or some type of early game weapon added to make leveling carving a bit more dynamic, but I will move on to one of my personal favorite skills, cooking. I really love cooking personally, so I'm a bit biased towards cooking, and I find it really fun, and I enjoy some of the build 42 changes to the skill, but I'm gonna try to evaluate the skill as objectively as I can. Leveling cooking truly has almost no major benefits. Yes, at high levels, 8+, I believe, you can use rotted food and detect poisons, which is only useful in multiplayer. The poison detection depends on your cooking level and their cooking level. It's not that useful. It's very niche, right? And you do get more nutrition from ingredients at higher levels. Your food does go further. This gives it some niche uses, I do admit. And actually, I think cooking is much more beneficial on multiplayer. Since cooking is much slower, and with dozens of players, which servers do have, getting the most value from limited food is actually quite beneficial. The overall fun or RP aspect does make me give cooking B tier. That's kind of what pushes it up even objectively, because it's just fun and it's just good RP, and I think it adds a lot to the game. But it's on the lower end due to its general uselessness to level. Honestly, cooking level 1 to 10, you don't notice it that much. It's maybe like a 40% gain, which sounds like a lot until you realize that once you have level 10 cooking, food is not really an issue anymore, right? Now, the only thing that does save it from maybe even going to C tier is just how stupidly easy it is to level cooking. Like, you can legitimately max cooking in long-term playthroughs and do zero grinding. It's completely passive skill. And I really like that the skill is leveled while you're doing the fun and useful things, right? Not like carving with the mindless grinding. So yeah, I mean, it's B tier, but I could see arguments for going up or down, and I would like to hear those. Now we're going to get to one that I think is not controversial at all. I think everyone is going to be kind of on my page here. When we finally reach a skill I'm going to be very negative about here. I am still super disappointed with how nearly worthless electrical is. An entire skill, and basically all it does is 3 things. Number 1, you can operate generators at level 3. Number 2, you can make lamps and floodlights powered by batteries around level 7, I believe. I'm not sure, maybe 6, maybe 7. And number 3, hot wiring cars. But the issue is, you can just find a generator magazine to use generators. And is creating battery-powered lamps that useful when you have a generator? Now, this could be useful for like wilderness-only runs. That's true. I'll give it there. But good luck leveling up your electrical in a wilderness-only run. Fuel is very easy to get, like significantly easier to get than batteries in 90% of runs. This is one of the most disappointing skills in my opinion. Since Build 42 updated and changed so much, it just feels like electrical has kind of been left in the past. I would like to see, honestly, any change. Let us run TVs from batteries. Again, generators, battery problems, I don't care. Give me something. Give me anything. Leveling it is also quite a bit more annoying in Build 42. They nerfed a lot of the XP, and a lot of the old tricks don't work anymore. Even speedrunners in Build 41 would take over an hour to get max electrical. So this is going to be the first D tier trait. And the only thing that saves it from going F tier is that you can learn to use generators as a literate. And that is something worth mentioning. Glassmaking. I am actually not as disappointed in glassmaking as I am electrical, but I will say this is the most useless and most disappointing skill in Project Zomboid Build 42. Be honest, when I was writing this script, I was struggling to think of any reason you would want to use glassmaking. I asked many people as well, and it's really disappointing to say that I got almost no good answers. Even in pure wilderness only runs, this skill is still nearly worthless. The only use I could ever come up with was making windows for wilderness only runs, and in normal runs, you just pick up windows, right? So you don't need to make them. And you can create jars, which you can use to preserve food. That is the only true use in my opinion, but overall, very disappointing skill. I wish we could create more things such as light bulbs. I think if you let us create light bulbs with good glassmaking and good electrical, you would have a super cool skill with just a single change, because light bulbs are actually not renewable. I mean, I guess technically they're sort of renewable if you get it from zombies, but not generally renewable. We cannot create them from scratch, right? So that's a super cool change we could add that would make both skills way more useful. This is definitely going to be the bottom of all. This is the end. This is the bottom for sure. Napping. Let's talk about napping. Napping is like kind of like, I call it my white well, because of all my tricks, of all my weird things I come up with, I've never found a way to like super fast level napping. If you got ideas, throw them in the comments, but I've tried like everything. I think napping is actually a really weird skill too. When it's useful, it is huge. When you don't have the right level and you need to use napping, it is a huge pain point for your survival, really. But honestly, if you think about it, it's not that useful. It's just crucial when you are missing specific items, right? Napping is only useful when you're cut off from the usual methods of acquiring items, such as like looting or blacksmithing or even carving. Plus, with the difficulty of leveling due to its dependence on sharp flint flakes or flint nodules, which forces you to constantly search for stones, I'm going to say this is C tier at best. The only real useful thing it can do is help you create renewable and highly durable axes, but it's not really worth the work overall. You spend more time searching for stones than you do creating useful items, but I will say, having 1 to 2 levels in napping is so nice for the early game. So traits that give these levels are relatively important. I will go C tier here since it does have some use, but it's very, very niche, and there are usually better ways to solve your problems. But I do want to add a caveat at the end, if you'll let me ramble for a moment. I think this is the perfect example of a really well-balanced skill. It doesn't break the game, it is super unique, and when it's useful, you are so happy it's there. And that's the kind of skill I want to see in Zomboid. I think napping is one of the best skills they designed. It's not my favorite, like blacksmithing, but I think it's one of the best design skills. And I really hope they keep going with stuff like napping. Going with the stone route, a little less fun is masonry. This is a really sad one. This is another one of those skills that's really only useful because blacksmithing exists. The stone blocks are useful for blacksmithing, but that is pretty much the only use of them. Yes, I'm aware you can do things with masonry. You could create some stone walls or stone shelves or stone things. It's useful. I don't deny the use if you're unable to use any other furniture that exists in uncountable numbers numbers throughout the world. The only time this skill is useful at all is in wilderness-only runs, which is a very, very unique challenge, or maybe even super low loot runs. I could see some use there. Now, if defenses mattered against zombies and stone walls had realistic strength, aka a zombie can basically never break down a really well-made stone wall, I could consider this more valuable. Now, go ask yourself how long it would take to push down a stone wall. If we had realistic strengths of walls and more positive realism, I could see masonry being really good for making super strong defenses. The walls are pretty strong now, but go make a stone wall in the game. Like, it's gonna get broken way faster than is reasonable in my opinion. I think maybe if they buff the strength up pretty significantly, like you need 10, 15 zombies, like a couple hours banging to break it, maybe you could see a use for it, but even then, it's still a hard pull for me. I'm gonna say the main benefit of the skill is kind of worthless with how weak walls are, so I'm gonna have to say this old boy's D tier. I might be wrong with that one. I could see a counter argument for masonry, but I'm gonna go with my gut here, and from my own personal testing. Mechanics, we're gonna get a little positive backup in here. I'm going number 1, top of S tier, baby. This is probably the one skill that I think is pretty much not changed at all since build 41. The only difference is you can auto learn some recipes now. I think that this is a testimony of how perfect of a skill mechanics is, especially with how much bigger the map has gotten in build 42. A car is so important. If you wish to maintain a car, especially in multiplayer, mechanics is something you just cannot ignore as a character. There is no alternative. Luckily, mechanics is a relatively easy skill to level and requires no resources to level. You don't even need a functional car to level it. Hell, you shouldn't use a functional car to level it. You should use a junk car because you're probably going to break it. Mechanics is also useful for giving you the ability to hotwire cars, removing the need for keys. I mean, it's probably the skill that makes electrical the most useful besides the generator thing, right? It literally is single-handedly raising up a neglected and poorly designed skill by giving it at least some niche use. The only downside I can think of is that it does require magazines, unless you take the mechanic occupation or trait, and even the trait still needs to learn the high performance vehicles. The trait I recommend highly since it is only 3 points. The occupation is a bit more expensive. Overall, this is clearly an S tier trait since I think it's just a skill any long-term character fundamentally needs, especially on multiplayer servers. Since cars are so hard to maintain due to just the sheer number of people and how often people crash into each other, not because of their own problems, but because of desync, right? You always got to remember desync affects multiplayer driving a lot. Pottery. I think it's going to take me a little time to talk about pottery, so be patient with me here. We have hit a skill that was very, very difficult to rank for me. Well, 99% of the items you can create with pottery, just like glassmaking, are basically worthless. There are a few outliers that do make the skill a bit more useful than glassmaking. Let's talk about why. While 90% of the items you can make, just like glassmaking, with pottery are basically worthless, there are a few outliers that do make the skill a bit more useful. Let's start with the most well-known, the crucible for blacksmithing. If anyone has done blacksmithing, you might know that getting this crucible is one of the most important steps in getting blacksmithing going. A few other uses of the skill is the seed press, which turns relatively useless seeds into stupidly high calorie oil. It's like really OP. You should try it out. And this is actually a pretty massive way to get food when you don't have a lot of other resources. One interesting thing though is that the oil press does not actually require any pottery skill, but it is still under the skill. So I think it gets credit, right? But I still think this skill needs to cook a little. I'm gonna go with a conservative C tier. I really think the few things it gives us are massive, but a lot of the things it lets us make are kind of boring, and getting clay is not the easiest thing to do. Maybe if we could see like clay knives, those are a thing. They're weak, sure, but so are glass ships, right? Clay knives would be pretty cool. I'd like to see that. Tailoring, okay. Now we get into the ones that get a bit controversial. It is gonna go above pottery, okay? I have consistently ranked tailoring as very low or nearly worthless, and I continue to say this in build 42. I play PZ with no clothes at least half the time. I have never valued armor, and I imagine I will continue this way, but I will admit tailoring is marginally more beneficial in build 42. With how many other skills depend on it, such as blacksmithing, for making true actual armor, there is some use to the skill. With the nerf that makes you unable to get thread from cloth at level 1 though, it's very tough to argue a C tier ranking for tailoring. I'm deciding to give it a C tier rank because while it is very tedious and time consuming to level, it is actually a remarkably AFK skill, which I think deserves some recognition because there are very few AFK skills in the game. And for new players especially, I think tailoring has some very high level benefits. I was a bit too harsh in the past about not getting hurt. It is a bit unrealistic. I do realize that. For new players, maybe you should consider doing a bit more on tailoring. I think that could help a lot with just some of the frustration of getting used to build 42 combat. So C tier I think is a reasonable take for like a known tailoring hater and a good balance between like a very experienced player and a new player. Welding an A tier, below carpentry for sure. I am actually really happy with how welding has gone in build 42. This is probably the perfect example of taking a skill with almost no use besides being used in another skill like mechanics, metalworking was in build 41, and actually turning it into something with some character, a little pizzazz. Welding doesn't just let us repair cars or barricade windows or build mediocre fences or walls like in build 41. Now we can actually create special unique items we never could before, like the metal ovens, which are a replacement for antique ovens. Such a cool thing to be able to make. They also look awesome too. I'll show one on screen. This is huge for no loot or wilderness only runs, and metal stairs, which are aesthetically very cool. Again, I'll show you some on screen. None of these are game changing, you know, but I feel like welding can stand on its own now as a skill. The only complaint I have is the problem welding has had since it was created: propane. It is remarkably unrealistic how low the propane levels are in Project Zomboid. There have been many solutions proposed, such as using massive propane tanks like we have in America. When I was a kid, my grandpa had one. He had to change it like every 6 months or something. Or gas stations with propane pumps, which we also have here, very common. Or just adding extra grills all over the world. I would be fine with any solution, but multiplayer servers always struggle with propane in the end, especially the low loot and no loot respawn servers, which are getting quite popular recently. I'm going A tier since this skill could be expanded on a little more, and in my opinion, the propane problem, that is very hard to say by the way, does really hurt it a little. Let's talk about agriculture. That's going to go into F tier. I'm going to put it below glassmaking actually. With the nerf to farming, and as a known farming hater usually, it is very hard to rank this as anything beyond F tier. But I feel I must justify myself for ranking it this low. Even in my build 41 tier list, I did not value the farming skill, and I still do not. Farming in build 42 with the seasons is already remarkably time consuming and unreasonably difficult. It's pretty much, I won't say it's impossible, but it's very difficult in multiplayer unless the seasons are turned off. The agricultural skill does very little to solve the main problems with farming. It simply makes the more tedious parts slightly less tedious. That does not fix an already bad skill. I do not deny it is useful for food acquisition, but I believe there are much easier ways to get food, but especially with the changes where crops you don't grow give no XP, I think this is a clear F tier skill. Imagine growing a bunch of crops in multiplayer and your friend harvests them and you get no XP. That feels bad. Animal care. I'm actually going B tier on this one. This is an interesting one for me. I'm gonna go into B tier. This is a skill that I really think still needs to cook a little. It isn't fully there in my opinion, but there's so much potential here. But it's just simply not up to the same level of flavor and usefulness as the other higher ranked skills in my opinion. Now, animal care does have a measurable use that should not be denied. With higher animal skill, you can more quickly reduce animal stress, which is extremely important. Stressed animals do not produce as much eggs or milk, or sometimes none at all, depending on the stress levels. It can also make animals want to escape. So reducing the stress of animals is extremely important. Also, at high levels, animal care gives you more information about animals, such as their weight, mating seasons, fertilization, pregnancy. This is really useful information if you're farming animals in your run. Now, I'm not an animal expert. Honestly, I'm really not, but I know a few. And I talked to some of my streamer friends who all do animal care, and I worked with them on this section quite a bit. I mean, they all kind of gave me the same idea I already had. The animals are basically one of the most fun parts of build 42 and one of their most favorite parts, which I do agree with, and that animals in build 42 might be the easiest way to basically gain happiness and stupid amounts of food with not that much work. There's a bit of an initial work of getting the animals, right? But once you have the animals, they kind of just chill there. They kind of just sit there, right? You just put the food down every week or two, and then you got infinite milk and cheese, or infinite milk and butter, right? Butchering's gonna go bottom, not bottom, right there. I like butchering there, right below napping. Butchering is actually a relatively easy skill to evaluate. The higher your level, the more calories and nutrients you get from each animal butchered. It basically means that for each animal you kill, you gain more food or calories from it. This does give it a numerical advantage that makes leveling it useful, but I don't really value this skill as butchering animals isn't that valuable of a food source. You're better off just fishing over any other food source, or just have a cow. Butchering the cow is less food than just milking the cow, you know? So while it is a valuable skill, it's really overshadowed by all the other food acquisition skills except farming. And also it's relatively difficult to level since it does require an animal for each skill grind. And you can run out of animals pretty fast. I would say this is a fair C tier. You know, it's basically 100% passive too, and doesn't really benefit your character. 90% of the time, you're going to be in the same situation, whether you're level 1 or level 10 butchering. And since the game is unrealistic with how much meat animals actually supply, it's not really worth your time to level, in my opinion. A single cow should be nearly a year's worth of food, roughly, but it just isn't. The negative realism of the game is holding this skill back and causing it to be placed into C tier, in my opinion. But if I'm wrong, I would like to hear the arguments against this. I think C tier is a very fair place for butchering personally. All right, first aid. There we go. We got an F tier, but it is going to actually, it's finally first aid for the first time is not the bottom of F tier. But I will say, this is by far the most useless skill you'll ever see in Project Zomboid. Even at a high level, this does very little to help your character. Due to how injuries work in Project Zomboid, any injury is potential death. So investing in a skill to make death slightly less likely is significantly less important than investing in the skills that prevent your injuries, such as like really good weapons. It is always better to be uninjured than to worry about fixing injuries fractionally better. I do not deny it has benefits such as faster healing, making movement speed with fractures faster, and making bandaging faster. Very niche CDDA use actually. But none of these are worth actually investing time in this skill. On top of this, leveling it requires healing injuries. And while there are ways to cheese this with alts or using broken glass, it is simply a waste of your valuable IRL time. Now, maybe there is a slight use in multiplayer, but I also disagree here as creating a new character is easier or just spending a few days in base to heal. Overall, F tier, and I'm gonna put the top of F tier, but I would say all three of these are pretty much even in their uselessness. You could even maybe argue glass making slightly above. That's a personal take in my opinion. These are all kind of equal to me. Fishing, you all knew it. You all knew I was gonna go S tier on the fishing. This thing is goated. Fishing is crazy. This is by far the most valuable skill in Project Zomboid Build 42 when it comes to acquiring food easily and efficiently. Now, fishing isn't the easiest skill to learn, nor level, since numerous things have changed in Build 42, basically making all old fishing guides out of date. The first thing we must address is the loss of spearfishing. My boy, rip in peace, my boy. This significantly increased the difficulty of fishing, requiring us to actually acquire poles or the recipes to create them. I usually always recommend people take Angler to make this a bit easier, but it is expensive. So I understand people who seek out the magazines. One tip I will mention is that you can speed up time while fishing and it will stop when you catch a fish. That helps a ton when fishing in single player. You can also speed up time while reeling in the fish. The greatest thing about fishing though is fishing nets. I have made a video about fishing nets and how powerful they are, so I will not elaborate too much here, but they are stupidly OP, way beyond what you're imagining. Check the description for that video to really understand why. This is clearly S tier, and we're gonna move on here. Foraging, this was a really tough one for me. I'm gonna go right here. Third level of S tier for foraging. Now, I do think Build 42 nerfed foraging a little, maybe a little too much. This is mostly because the size and calories for foraged food is much lower, making surviving off just foraging a bit more difficult. But it's still just as powerful when it comes to finding crazy items like magazines, gasoline, propane, weapons, or any other insane item you can think of. It's still a great source of stones, clay, and bait for fishing. And considering fishing is probably the best food source in the game, this makes foraging very important. The main reason though it goes into S tier is that it is a renewable source of some normally unrenewable items, while also being remarkably easy to level. Basically, if you just forage every now and then, you will probably max foraging. It's very quick. It's also kind of my maybe second, third favorite skill. One change to keep in mind from Build 42 is that most items are hard locked behind certain skill levels, which was not exactly how it worked in Build 41. You can see what categories you are capable of finding from the search focus menu though, so it's very easy to know what you can find. I'm gonna go F tier, bottom of F tier with tracking, and I'm gonna talk about why. This is a really weird skill in my opinion. I'm not even sure I really wanted to rank it, since it feels it's like a skill that I believe 90% will be removed, just like the old metalworking was. It was all moved into welding, and it doesn't seem to do anything important that couldn't be better covered by trapping. And with the skill bloat we already have, this really feels like an unnecessary skill that we don't need. This 100% 100% should just be under trapping, and then trapping will be even better, right? This is clearly an F tier trait because it basically does absolutely nothing for your character or their long-term survival. If this skill is expanded on in the future and hunting is a bit more engaging and fun and less buggy on multiplayer, then maybe this ranking could change. Trapping. We all knew trapping was going to be a thing. If you've ever watched my live streams or know about me, you know trapping is going to be a thing. I'm very conflicted on trapping. I mean, it's a bit of a meme, but let's go through it, okay? Stick traps require very low skill level and will give you decent calories, not enough to survive, but enough to definitely help. Like stick traps and foraging, you can almost survive on just that. And it requires almost no skill at all. So leveling this skill is not that valuable. You can still do trapping just fine at level 0 or level 10. It's not a huge gain like other skills are, but I won't say it's worthless to level. Now, I will not deny the usefulness of trapping as a food source, but I also do not like trapping since I am a proud bun dad, as you saw at the beginning of my video, and I do feel bad hurting the little bunnies. So forgive me for not liking trapping, but I will be fair with you. I will be reasonable with you. I will give it S tier to show that I am legitimate, okay? But don't hurt the bunnies. Stop hurting bunnies. I'm just joking.